All right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. So we are going to go through the AAPPL testing process and some enhancements that have occurred. We do have some members from our LTI team who are here monitoring the chat with any questions that you may have that I might not be able to answer. Carl Bowman is also here. He is the specialist from USB who is over dual language immersion. We will go ahead and get started. Just as a heads up for you, this meeting is being recorded, so it will be available for future reference on the Assessment Accountability YouTube channel, and so you can reference it at any time or use it or send it to people who may find it helpful. Make sure that if you have questions, you can utilize the chat. You can also come off mute if you are comfortable doing so, if you have any questions that need to be answered. We're going to go through any troubleshooting that might be necessary for AAPPL testing. That includes rostering, accommodations, and then we will talk about best practices for preparing for the test, as well as how to access your reporting. And that way, hopefully you're more comfortable with sharing that information with the appropriate audiences that you work with. So the AAPPL test is provided by LTI, or Language Testing International, and it is provided for grades 3 through 9 who are enrolled in dual immersion programs. There are 4 separate components, and those can be administered separately. To do so, though, you need to be aware that it does require headphones and a microphone. So just kind of be aware of that. Those are things that are going to be required for students to take the test successfully. Student tests are going to be ordered automatically through the UTREC system. So as long as you have rostered students appropriately, the tests are going to appear there automatically for students. You don't have to order them individually. If you are not seeing those, that's where you might want to reach out to Maureen Rushing, our rostering specialist, who can help you with that. The testing window for this administration begins October 17th and goes through December 2nd. I would encourage you to test early. We'll go over some reasons why a little bit later, but really it just helps solidify the process with as few wrinkles as possible. That if you have students who receive a UR rating, if you are testing too close to the end of that window, they may not have the opportunity to retest. And so we want to be able to provide that opportunity for our students. And so make sure the earlier the better, just so that if we run into any hiccups or wrinkles, we can iron them out right at the beginning. So I've included on this slide some important links that are just going to help you familiarize yourself with the system and the process. So there's a YouTube video that's linked there at the top on how to manage teacher accounts, because as LEA level users, that is one of your responsibilities, is to manage your teacher accounts that are in your LEA. I've also included a link to the AAPPL Utah website where you can find everything specific to Utah AAPPL administration for dual immersion students. There's a link for the demo version, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a link for how to take a test, the systems check, any technical requirements that are involved, how to assign accommodations, as well as other helpful videos as you're going through the process. And just as a heads up for you, most of this information is found on the client site manual. I believe it's on page 3. It's also on the home screen of the Utah AAPPL site. So I'm going to give Maureen Rushing a few minutes here to talk about rostering. Maureen, are you with us? I can only see like 3 faces at a time. So if you're here, go ahead and come off mute.
I'm here.
Yay!
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Here I am. All right, so we have here just a little illustration of just sort of how information flows from your student information system all the way into your assessment, with AAPPL in this case. Student information is entered at your district level into your student information system. That your student information system submits the student information to UTREC, which is validated, checked for many different things. Once it passes through those validations, then we send it along to your assessment vendor. which is why sometimes it can take a couple of days for a student to get rostered into assessment. It has to pass through all these steps to get there. So at least a couple of days for a student to get from SIS to rostering for an assessment. So to be rostered for AAPPL, a student needs to be enrolled in grades 3 through 9. They have to be enrolled at a state-sponsored DLI school, and we'll have that DLI school list available very soon. It's in the works right now. Need to be actively enrolled in an eligible course, and we have the link here to the page which shows you all the core codes of courses that qualify students for this test. The tests they're rostered automatically through Utrex. I guess there is one other way, which I'm not aware of, how they are rostered. I hope I'm not in charge of that because as far as I know, they're all just rostered straight through by Utrex, and you shouldn't be doing anything manually. Here's a sample of a core code priority. It starts at the top and goes down. So if I guess you're going to have a Chinese DLI test, first it's going to look for grade 3 Chinese DI homeroom, and then it just goes down the list until it finds one of those courses in a student's schedule, and it will assign a test accordingly. Oh, yep, for instance. So just a quick list of things to check if you don't see a student on a roster. Make sure they are in a school that qualifies them. They're in the course with one of those course codes we just looked at. Make sure they have correct entry and exit dates in their schools. Also, course enrollment and course exit dates, those are important. Make sure if they're enrolled in 2 schools, make sure they're rostered in their appropriate school that is DLI eligible. And just make sure, like with any other assessment, make sure there are no Utrex errors on their school enrollment or their course enrollments. And always, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I will help you sort out any issues you have with rostering.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maureen. Again, if you've got any rostering questions, she is the one you want to speak with.
Yep.
We're going to look at accommodations next. The specialist that's generally over accommodations for the AAPPL test is Tracy Gooley, but she was unable to be with us this afternoon. So I'm going to present a few slides for her. But if at any time you have questions regarding AAPPL accommodations, you are welcome to reach out to Tracy or myself. I can also forward those along. So it's just important to understand that accommodations are provided for students with disabilities as outlined on the student's IEP.
I'm just listening.
So there will be changes in the test administration that do not alter the validity of the score interpretation, reliability, or security of the test. And they should be the same accommodations that they are receiving in classroom instruction. But understand, please, that some accommodations that are appropriate for instructional use may not be appropriate on a standardized testing setting. And I've linked here the Utah Participation and Accommodations Policy for reference. When you go to request accommodations for an AAPPL test, you'll go to the Utah's AAPPL Central site and click on the accommodations tile to begin that process. And when you select that tile, this option is going to come up and it provides links to two locations. The first one is the accommodations and request guideline document, and the second is the request template that would be uploaded to the LTI client site. And we'll go through that process in just a bit. But this is the guidelines document that gives you an idea as to what accommodations are provided. You can review this with your teams to determine which ones need to be requested. There are some embedded options which are provided for all test takers. And then there are also accommodations that require a formal request from AAPPL. And there are different accommodations which require that request. And those are outlined specifically in the guideline document. So this is what the request template kind of looks like. You'll need to enter the information required. One spreadsheet can be used for all of your students, or you can fill it out multiple times if needed. But understand that one document is totally acceptable. There is one enhancement here that's a little bit different from prior years. You'll notice that column B includes now the district name. So not entirely too difficult as far as enhancements go, but just know that that's a change from last year, that the district name is also going to be required on that document before you upload it to the client site. When you go to upload that document, you will select the LTI file transmit option menu from the menu that's there on the left-hand side. And from there, you can choose the file that you have filled out for submission. LTI reviews the requests and processes them generally within 10 business days, and you can log back in and check the status of the accommodations so you can see if they were approved and if you're good to begin testing. But I also believe you receive an email when those accommodations have been approved. Jennifer, is that correct? Do they receive an email? Yes, she's nodding. Yep, so you'll get an email when that's also been approved. Again, if you've got any questions regarding accommodations, I've included Tracy's contact information here. So it's in the slide deck, but if you need to jot it down really quickly, you can go ahead and do that. It's just tracy.gooley@schools.utah.gov if you have any accommodation questions for students who may require that on their AAPPL assessment. So now we're going to look at preparing for testing. You will want to obviously refer to the AAPPL rostering overview from Maureen, and you'll want to familiarize yourself with the demo. Students can do this as well, and I would strongly encourage you to have students take a demo test. You'll want to update the teacher accounts. When you come to do that, and teachers are going in and accessing their accounts, it's important to have them or encourage them to utilize helps that are located on the client site. So if a user's forgotten passwords or a username, those little links underneath the sign-in button are very easily utilized for them to access their accounts if they're missing something. Also, I would strongly encourage you to use the provided systems check that's linked in the technical requirements beforehand. A lot of times we rely too heavily on the fact that our technology is going to work the first time around. And if you're doing that in a testing setting, that can be really stressful when it doesn't work the way you had previously intended it to. So that systems check is going to help attempt to alleviate any of those issues that may come up. As far as the website for Utah-specific updates, there was a change. So I've included the new URL here. Just to know, if you still have the old applecentral.com/Utah site bookmarked, there is an automatic redirect. So you don't necessarily have to go and change anything, but you might want to. It's here, or if you haven't bookmarked it yet, here's the information for you to do so. The site is very user-friendly, super easy to navigate, but if you have any questions at any time, feel free to reach out and I can help direct you to what you might be looking for. The AAPPL test still does fall under Utah's testing ethics policy. So just as kind of a heads up there, make sure that your students are in a secure testing environment, meaning that there are no extra electronic devices that may be accessible in the testing room, or dictionaries if it is not allowed, cameras, those types of things. The testing tickets are still considered secure materials, so upon completion, you need to collect those and destroy those tickets. You'll want to follow the scripting that is provided in the AAPPL Proctoring Guide. It is provided in all of the languages that AAPPL is provided for, so that you can also provide those directions in the language that the student, in the target language the student is enrolled in. You'll also want to make sure that you are actively monitoring testing. Be walking around the room, be checking on students, ensuring that any testing protocols are being followed. If you have any questions regarding testing ethics, please contact our testing coordinator, Kim Rafke, with any questions that you might have. Also, before testing for prepping, you'll want to double check compatibility with your computers or tablets that students are using. I've included all of that technical jargon here for you that you can double check, but it is also provided on LTI's website as well as Apple Central for Utah. Again, with the compatibility, double check headsets and speakers because the ability to play audio is absolutely required. A good quality digital USB headset and microphone is recommended. With iOS systems, I would strongly recommend using iOS products because iOS doesn't always like to play nicely with generic brand or other brand products. So just kind of be aware of those things, as that might cause some systems issues when you go in to do a systems check. So for the Apple demo, the really cool thing about the demo is it allows the user to experience the audio and the video just as they would if they were doing it in the testing setting. There are fewer completion tasks, so it's significantly shorter. Responses are not stored, so it's not like students are going to be given a score, so it's very low stakes. Just understand though, if you quit and restart, it is going to return to the beginning of the demo. It's not going to pick up where a student may have left off. Know that for the presentational writing component, you may have to adjust some keyboard settings, and also be aware that not all languages have a demo option available. However, English is always available. And so if there is not a demo available in your student's target language, have them use the English version. There is a site link provided on Utah Apple Central's site, and I've linked it here in the slides. And so when you click on the tile, you'll be able to view, and you can even print the PDF version of the Proctor guide for your target DLI language. And the Proctor guide is kind of like the TAM, if you are familiar with other things for other vendors. This is kind of your test administration manual. It has guidance for all users before, during, and after testing, as well as other recommendations that you may want to consider prior to the testing setting. So now we're going to look at creating and deactivating teacher accounts, as that is one of the biggest responsibilities that an LEA level user has when it comes to administering the Apple test. The process is outlined in the client site user manual, but we're going to go through it in a fair bit of detail here. Whenever you need to update accounts, you're going to use the user maintenance option from that left-hand menu list. And you'll note my big yellow note here. The account name is the teacher's cactus. Please do not at any time rename that cactus number because it is used for file integration. If you change the cactus number, the sync that goes through for the ordering and rostering is not going to work properly. So when you go into those teacher accounts, just double check that cactus number and then don't change it. If there's one thing you take from today, don't change the teacher's cactus number. You can also check the hierarchy of LEAs and schools prior to testing, just so that it kind of allows for smoother sailing once that testing window opens in October. So after you go in and select the account, the user information will appear and you'll be able to edit any areas that you wish to change. So in addition to editing the user information, you can mark the user as inactive if they are no longer in your building, or active if somebody has come back, or again, if you need to reactivate an account. Just make sure that you click Save after making any changes to those accounts. When you go to create sub-accounts for new schools in your district, the parent account is going to be set up at the district level with schools as a sub-account, okay? So when you go to do that, if you need to log in, you'll click the sub-account menu, then click Create the new sub-account. And then you can create as many sub-accounts as you need to. Just be sure to choose the appropriate parent account from the drop-down menu at the top and fill in the information. And just be aware that sub-account name can't be changed once it's created, okay? And again, I can't stress it enough, the account name has to be the teacher's cactus number. Please don't change it. It needs to be the cactus number for the information to flow correctly. If you need multiple people to have access to a sub-account, you can set up additional users. For example, if an administrator needs a testing administrator or a teacher to have access to other student score reports, you can add that under the school account, okay? Any questions on updating or those teacher accounts or clarifications? Again, if something comes up, you're welcome to send me an email or just double check your client site manual. Another component with those teacher accounts, this is, I wanted to address this one a little bit differently and separately, because if you need to update any teacher accounts that are moving between districts, that needs to be taken care of at the LTI-AAPPL support level. And so you'll need to email them with the information that's included on this little table. You'll notice that the new district needs to be included, as well as the new school, the teacher first and last name, their email, their cactus number, as well as the old school where they were previously. Okay. I see a question in the chat. What if you have accounts already set up and their username is not their cactus? Jennifer, do they need to go in and change that to the teacher cactus number?
That it does need to match the teacher cactus number, yes. Sorry, oh, I just realized I didn't hit enter on my answer. I'm like, I replied to. Yes, you do. It needs to match their cactus number. Okay. And if you have any trouble with editing that, contact the AAPPL help at languagetesting.com and just indicate the teacher's name, the username, the cactus ID, what it should be, what the account is set up as currently, and we'll make sure that gets cleaned up.
Perfect. Thank you. When it comes to testing tickets, when you're ready to test, they can be printed just straight from the client site. The tickets, again, remember, are secure testing materials, so please handle them as confidential information. Don't give them to students prior to the day of testing. You don't want them going home. Okay, keep them secure and then dispose of them in a secure manner when you are done. As a heads up, when you go to search for these testing tickets, the shorter the date range you have, the quicker the system is going to be able to generate your response, because it's trying to get through all of the tests that are loaded through the system. So the more narrow range you can give, the sooner it's going to produce that option for you. When you go to print those labels to access your print student login information, just note that you're going to need to, what's the word I'm looking for? You need to grant access to pop-up blockers, okay? So those need to be disabled for the printer to work correctly. And from there, you can select a format. So you can decide what would work best in your classroom setting. And then the student information appears like it is there on the screen. You can see that the ticket has the student name, the username, the password, what language the student will be testing in, and the site used to access their test. Beware of the testing window. Okay, here's your nice heads up for this again, the second or third time we're going to hit on it. The sooner you test, the more time you will have to submit any retest requests. Please understand that no rating reviews are going to be accepted after the testing window closes on December 2nd. So if you have a rating request that comes in on December 1st, you're cutting it really close. The last week of that testing window also, like that week prior to December 2nd, really shouldn't be for general testing. Try to reserve that for students who are absent or students who have previously received a UR score on their test, so that there's time for that retake to occur. And just also know that there will be a test push that occurs at the end of the window for students who have started but not submitted those tests. And those are submitted, I believe, at the end of business day on December 2nd. Jennifer, can you confirm that? She's nodding, yes. So that test push will occur end of business day on December 2nd. So you'll want to make sure that you get as much of it done as early as possible.
Elise?
Yes.
What does that test push look like? Is it going to the teacher? Is it going to this district? How does it look?
It basically is an auto submit from what I understand. Jennifer, can you provide more information on what that might look like?
Yeah, what happens essentially is the system will just automatically submit everything that's still in the system. So it's just, like you said, Elise, it's just an auto push, and those all just get submitted.
All right, so did somebody come off mute?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, go for it.
So what that means is that since students have not finished a section, or when students have gone home sick, and they plan on coming back to get it finished or whatever, those are going to be submitted without anybody's knowledge. So we can't wait to the last minute to be able to then say, oh, wait, on December 3rd, this student was out ill and we can't get, we need to be able to have time to get it done. No, that's what we're telling you now. You need to make sure that those tests are finished up, because that automatic push is going to be done at the end of business on December 2nd. So that's not going to have, please forgive us, let's get it done. No, it's not going to happen. So please make sure.
Thanks, Carl. That kind of supports the comment I had on the last slide of that last week of testing really should be kind of like a cleanup time. Best practice, you don't want to start testing the last week of the testing window.
And it's to kind of tag along with what Carl's saying. It's a good idea that previous week, like Elisa's saying, to check your tests. So if there are tests that you may have students who think they completed, but they never clicked that last submit, that's going to auto submit, or if they didn't complete. So it's a good idea to, before that very end, check your tests that might be in process or that haven't submitted and completed.
Perfect, thank you. So when testing is complete and you're ready to start accessing your reports from your LTI client site, you'll notice that there are 3 reporting options that appear in your menu. Okay, and we're going to look at those 3 things today in a little bit more detail. So the first one is the AAPPL Measure Score Report. When looking at reports, you want to be familiar with the performance scales that AAPPL uses. If you notice here, it starts with advanced learners at the top and then goes down through novice, as well as including the form that the student has taken or would be taking. So when you view the national report, the little orange dot that you see represents the national average. And you'll be able to see the breakdown for the school for the 4 components and how that school compares to the national average. You can also search by teacher. To filter by teacher to view a teacher's reports, you'll need to know their cactus number, or you can also filter, I believe you can also filter by name. Is that a thing, Jen? Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I think you can also filter by name. So name or cactus number. And when that happens, you'll be able to add any additional filters to drill down even further. You can filter by grade level, or how many years the student has been enrolled in the DLI program, as well as the type of instruction that they are receiving. The AAPPL School Report allows you to see the performance for individual classes, and it's going to break those down into the 4 separate components of the AAPPL test. So the interpretive listening and speaking one will appear in one spot, presentational writing appears in a spot, interpretive listening in one spot, and then interpretive reading in the other one. Longitudinal reports are also provided. You'll be able to search by year, not necessarily by a specific date, because from what I understand, it's searching for the years that the student took the test. And so you might have a year for, you might have data for 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Okay. You can also search by language or by student specifically if you were looking at a specific student. But here you can see how the student information is reported over the course of multiple years. So it includes the student name, the language in which they take the AAPPL test, which school or schools they were enrolled in during the administration, their grade for each individual test, the year that they took the test, and then the scores they receive on each individual component. And this can be exported to Excel if needed. If it needs to be shared with a teacher or parent or other audience, you can use the export to Excel option to be able to share or disseminate that data if it is needed. So when it comes to the unreadable tests, there's a report for these specific tests as well, and they can be filtered by teacher, school, and language. Understand that the UR request goes to the teacher and the district, and then it can be viewed in that filter option. So if you select the school, you're going to be able to see which schools and languages have UR results, as well as how many there are. If you select by teacher, you're going to see which school the teacher is assigned to, and this is important as some of our DLI teachers are employed by multiple schools, as well as any languages that have those UR results, as well as how many. And then finally, if you select language, you're going to see the languages that have UR tests as well as how many. And these can also be exported to Excel if needed. So resetting a student test. So if a student receives a UR, that unrateable score, a new test is automatically going to be issued to the student overnight so they can test again. And they're going to have a new code and password to access that test. And that test will be available in your client site the day after you receive the notification. Okay. That UR reorder is going to go to the teacher with a copy to the district, as previously discussed. One of the components here we need to talk about, though, is a retest request. So any test that's rated below an N1 does not auto reorder. You will need to contact myself as well as Carl Bowman here at USB, and we will authorize if the student can be issued a retest or not. So we will also be asking for some environmental or situational details so that we can make that call. So for those individual cases, you contact us, and then we will work with LTI to get you that retest request. Okay. Again, retests for any of those unrateable tests still need to happen during the testing window. So here's the plug again. Please plan accordingly. Do not wait until the last week, as that is going to severely limit the opportunity for students who may fall into that UR window. For a little bit now, I want to talk about avoiding those unrateable tips. What are some things that we can do in our classrooms to avoid that from happening? The first one I would recommend is the systems check. Double check and triple check that the technology that you are using is working properly for your students. Okay. Another tip that doesn't necessarily relate to the UR, but when the student is participating in the speaking portion of the test, they don't need to speak the entirety of the time that is given. So if the student is allotted 4 minutes to speak, understand that if the student only speaks for 1.5 minutes, if it was presented well, they are not necessarily at risk of having an unrateable test. Jennifer or Carl, do you have any other tips that you'd like to present as options for people to just kind of be aware of?
I think one thing that sometimes happens and results in a UR is they didn't do their system check. And so maybe their headset cuts out, or it's not even plugged in and they don't realize. So like, it really is worth doing that system check well before the actual testing time, and have them run the little check, you know, when they sit down to test as well. Another piece is making sure the background noise is controlled for. So occasionally, if there's a lot of interference or background noise that's making it difficult for the rater to hear the audio sample of the student, that can result in a UR as well. Jamie. Yeah, I was going to say Jamie from our support team probably has some other ideas. Go ahead, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie.
The other thing is sometimes the students will translate the question. That can result in a UR, or they would, if the test is in Spanish, they write in English. Sometimes they do the same thing for the oral test. So if it's a Chinese test, they may answer the questions in English, and that would result in a UR. Also the auto submission, right? So if they log in and they don't log back in within the 14 days, the test will rate whatever's there. So if they only answered 4 questions or 2 questions out of 8, then that would cause a UR as well.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that you hit on the 14-day window as well, because that's really important to be aware of, that once the test is open, the student has that 14 days to finish, or it's going to auto submit even before our December 2nd auto submit. Thank you for hitting on that. Okay. So in the event that you do need to reorder a test for a student, after you have contacted Carl and myself, if we have let you know that we can approve that, these are the steps that you'll need to complete that little form. So you'll click on the test request on your client site, choose the Apple assessment, and then download the Apple registration and reporting form. And then you'll fill out the information that is required and then upload it to this system. And you can reach out to Apple Help if you need any of this assistance with this process, but also know that this process affects only a few students. It's only for the ones who need to retest, and Carl and I will have needed to approve that retest request prior to this anyway. Okay. So after testing is, oh, go for it, Jamie.
Yes. If you do have to submit a new template, always make sure that you use a brand new one, not something that you used previously, because if you may have some data on there and you delete it. With Excel, we always see that there's always like hidden data within the Excel sheet, which can cause issues. So just always get a brand new spanking one and then enter the data to alleviate any issues.
Perfect, thank you.
Jamie, can I actually have you respond to Alan's question as well? If a student starts the test, they get sick and cannot log back in within that 14-day window, is it better to just cancel and then request the test later when they're able to actually take the full test?
You have two options. You or the teacher can log in with the student's credentials. Each time a student logs in and access that component, it will reset the 14-day window, right? So for example, if you log in on day 13, it will then reset it for another 14 days from the time that you logged in, right? Or the other option is you can cancel that test depending on if they only answered 1 or 2 questions. It's best you can cancel 2 and have a new one submitted. But I think the easiest thing is just log into that component and reset the 14-day window.
Perfect, thank you.
You're saying you don't have to actually do anything, just actually logging into it and then getting back out of it will reset it.
Correct. So there's a start button. Well,
Yeah.
Initially, it will be a continue button because this is you logging back in. So just click on the continue button, get to the video instructions, and then just log out.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Now, if you have any participation codes that need to be entered during the testing process, LTI has created a customized column in the client site that allows you to designate that a student has not participated in any specific testing component. And so to do that, you would just click on the non-participation link that is next to the student's name, and then there will be a drop-down for each individual component. And that way, the other nice thing is maybe the student was able to take the presentational writing component, but was ill during the listening component. And so you can mark that accordingly. One of the biggest ones here is our parental exclusion, trying to get those ones in an effective manner. Okay. Once you've applied that, you will be able to see that as well, so that you can double check and triple check that you've entered your participation codes appropriately. So a few kind of frequently asked questions, just so that you're aware, in the document itself, in the slide deck, this link that says Apple FAQs at the top actually will take you to a list of frequently asked questions for the Apple test. But I've also listed here 4 of the more common ones that I get asked. So what if a new test is issued to students? Students are going to get a new username and password. Again, you'll receive that the following day after the UR has been shown on the client site. This is another big one. Who is eligible for remote administration? So this year, only designated DLI schools who administer all instruction online, like Utah Online, will be allowed to test remotely for 2022-23 administration. Okay. This kind of goes back to what I talked about with one of the UR things, how much speaking is required for the ILS component. The student does not need to take the entirety of the time. It's the quality of their response that matters, not necessarily how long they were speaking. And then for any account resources, the account resources tile that is on Utah Apple Central is a really good one-stop shop. It has links to all sorts of resources. It has the client site manual. It has the Proctor guide, and any of the information that you might need or that would also be useful. Are there any questions that are that you have come up throughout the training that have not been addressed. This is a good time to have a little Q&A break. Again, you can drop them in the chat or you can come off of mute.
I will draw attention to, in case everyone doesn't see that in the chat with Carrie, that Elise did have the PowerPoint sent out today. So if you haven't received this PowerPoint, email Elise and then we'll get that sent to you. But that's got all the links that she's talking about so you can update your bookmarks and everything in your own computer. So.
Question in the chat, is there a way to clean up sub accounts?
Yes. I think the best approach, and Jamie, please chime in here, I think what we've had done in the past is you can send what they are and what you would like them to be and send those to Apple Help, and our support team does that. Is that right, Jamie?
Yes, that's correct.
Great question.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and Walker, that's a common, everyone has a lot of transitions with teachers, every year. So, and one of the reasons that we're having our support team manage that is because the sub-accounts are many, and there are many teachers who float around to different schools and move around throughout the years. And so, again, just enter, make a list of what it is currently, what you need it to be, and then our support team will clean that up.
When will the initial upload take place?
Are you talking about the initial rostering, Alan, or you can feel free to unmute yourself too?
Yes, just so we can start checking. I want to make sure that all my classes got uploaded right, so we don't wait till the last minute to have an emergency.
I like your thinking. So that first rostering will start right away, I believe. And Jamie, I don't know if you saw the date on this with some of the other emails, but I believe that's the first week of October. They're going to verify everything, and then the roster should be complete in time for that October 17th start date. So if you log in, even on the 16th, you should see everything rostered up there. Right, Jamie?
Yes, that's correct.
That also reminds me that the welcome letter from LTI will be going out to users on October 3rd. So kind of be watching for that. Any other questions?
Hello. I'm actually we just make some changes. I'm the new vice principal in my school, but so do I need to get call to make the change in my account to see the rest of my teachers? I mean, to change my role, or what's the step that I need to follow?
So I think what I hear you saying is that your role has changed at the school where you are, and
Yes.
you need that updated so that you have the view access of everything that you does in your new role. Yes?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's similar, just like with the sub accounts. If you can send your information, what your current role, or what your role was, I guess, and then what that needs to be changed to the Apple Help email, and then our support team will update that.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks so much.
And Elise, I don't know if it's useful if you want to go to that last slide just so
Yeah, I can do that.
that Apple Help email is right there.
Definitely. So on this slide, you can see the Apple Help email request. You can also call the number with option 1. Also, at any time, if you have questions regarding dual language immersion, there is the contact information for Carl Bowman. If you have any questions regarding test administration, you can contact me. For any data management or rostering, you can contact Maureen. I've also linked here the other helpful Apple videos that were also on, I believe it was slide 3, so that you have them in a couple of places to review. Any other questions before we sign off for the afternoon?
Question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. If we have people that should have seen this that weren't able to do it, where will you have the
Good question. So
the recording?
The recording. So the recording will be uploaded to the Assessment and Accountability YouTube channel within the next couple of days. I tend to put the link in the AD memo. And then the slides, if you want to send me an email, I can just directly email you a PDF of the slides that were used.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Jennifer, question. So I know when like schools would do the upload and then they would get like an email regarding like the technical requirements along with the whitelist. Have we sent that out to like the schools in the district with the whitelist information just to make sure like they check that list to make sure everything is up to date on their end?
That's a great question, Jamie, and I'm not sure if we're putting that in the welcome letter this year. So I'll verify that with Mark, and we'll make sure that that goes out to at least, just so that we know the schools still have, because the URL has changed now, they may need to run that through whitelisting again because it's slightly different. Great point,
And
Jamie.
I can include any of that in our AD memos that go out weekly as well.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yep. So everyone just gets what Jamie's referring to. Many of your schools, you need to whitelist your websites. And if you had Apple Central whitelisted in the past, now that we have the new website that's languagetesting.com/Utah Apple Central, you may need to re-whitelist the URL.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
Yeah, is that list is in that URL is in the welcome email? Is that what you're saying? Just want to clarify.
It will be in the welcome email. It is also in the slides.
It is in the slides. Okay.
Yep, it's in the
Awesome.
slides.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. She even dropped it in the chat for you.
No,
You can copy it over. Even better.
Will there be any schools using iPads exclusively for testing?
I believe so, as we have had some in the past.
Okay.
We do have some that are on iPads also that are on Macs, like a Mac device.
Okay. Because testing on iPads can be very tricky sometimes. So I think in the client manual, we added some troubleshooting tips when testing an iPad that should be reviewed, because we get a lot of the same questions about students being kicked out when typing or the audio not working. So it's very good to review that information if they're using the iPads.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, and Brett is confirming that Wasatch uses iOS and Macs.
And that's actually a good point too, is that there are some edits to the client manual this year. So those of you who have already been testing, already have some experience doing the Apple and already have some experience with the client site manual or any of that you're like, oh, I know how this all goes. I do encourage you to review, because there are some updates and edits in the manual. For example, troubleshooting when you're using iPads. And there are a few other little things that just might be helpful and useful to refresh and to review some of the updates on there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for spending an hour of your afternoon with us. Again, if you have questions, feel free to send me an email. This recording will be posted on our channel, and I will make sure that the link goes out in the AD memo as soon as it is available so that you can reference it or use it as needed. Thank you again so much. I sure appreciate you.